Hey everybody, I am Tin Tim. That's T-I-N as in nachos are yummy. T-I-M as in make me some tamales. This is part 2 of my audition for Queens of the Week. First off, I want to say how much I loved Pedro's video announcing the top 12 finalists. I thought he was serving some serious bring back my girls realness. I especially loved the one piece of feedback he had for me, which was that I need to be careful not to sound too smart. What I loved about that was how much it reminded me of those, hilarious little bits of feedback they give to people on shows like RuPaul's Drag Race when they, clearly can't come up with any other criticism to give them. I'm kidding. I do tend to talk about some more intellectual topics in some of my videos, but I was like, I didn't think that my audition video was that much like that. I was like, all I did was talk about myself, right? So I was curious, so I went back to watch it. And sure enough, in the first 30 seconds, I've been watching Queens of the Week since its inception. Just say you've been watching Queens of the Week since the channel started, you pretentious motherfuck. In all seriousness, I do think that it's very important to talk about ideas, but I think that those ideas should be always in touch with what actual people, are experiencing, with people's actual lived experiences. And I want it to be done in such a way that the average person on the street could still find their entry point into the conversation or whatever, or still be able to find something in it to connect with and relate to. I want it to be a conversation that's open to just this broad diversity of people and their thoughts, their ideas, their experiences, their feedback. And if it doesn't accomplish that, then I feel like I failed. I wanted in this audition video to talk about monogamy because I thought that would give me an opportunity to talk a little bit more about myself and be a little vulnerable. I am in a relationship that I have been in for slightly more than 10 years now. We are a somewhat open relationship, meaning we are allowed to play or to kind of hook up with other people. We don't have sort of more extended, emotional, meaningful relationships than that, right? So we're not polyamorous, although I know some very cool poly people, totally respect that as, one totally valid way that people do life and love and relationships and sex and all of that, right? What has been very awesome and just very valuable to me about the kind of openness that we have in our relationship has been the emphasis on sharing and on honesty. I think there are some open relationships that operate in more of a don't ask, don't tell kind of way, right? Where it's I don't care what you do as long as I don't have to hear about it. From the get-go, we have been the exact opposite of that, right? We tell each other everything. Often it even kind of becomes a way of adding some excitement to our sex life. I think one of the most important pieces is that we're very open with each other about when we are attracted to other people. We'll check people out together when we're out in public sometimes. And I think all of that takes away this thing that does exist in a lot of relationships where it's taboo to even mention the fact that we obviously have attractions to other people sometimes, right? I think that level of pretending that I only see you, right? I think sometimes lets this dishonesty into a relationship that actually breeds distrust rather than trust. That's another key thing that I probably should have said, is that I think regardless of what kind of relationship you have, there has to be a level of trust if you're gonna be intimate with someone in a long-term way. If you don't have some kind of baseline of trusting one another, however that's established, to have that sort of safe space, then I think that's a problem. Trust and honesty are both critical, I think, no matter what kind of relationship it is. What has been funny to me about being in this sort of open thing is that I actually take advantage of it almost never, right? The way I actually live my life, half the time I am almost more monogamous than not. I am not someone who is very good at sort of negotiating hookups and like telling people what I want. I'm really bad at that. I get scared. I feel uncomfortable about like the safety factor and, you know, meeting people I haven't met before. All of that just makes me really anxious. And so a lot of the time I just feel better off not doing it. You know, another thing about me and my partner is that there is a 14-year age difference between us. And so you would think, me being the younger one, I would be sort of the like, let me go out and sow my wild oats type. The kind of hookups that I like best if I'm going to have them. I am kind of a romantic still, and I don't mean that in like a kind of pie in the sky, dance on the clouds with our true love and our Hallmark cards. It's not like that. I do like, I think, a certain element of drama, a little bit more of a story. So there's just something a little bit too mechanical about the traditional hookup. There's nothing spontaneous. There's no storyline there. One of my favorite hookups that I've had was actually with a good longtime friend of mine who identifies as bisexual and then has had long-term relationships with both. So not like bi-curious, but he had dated a good female friend of mine. So there was this little element of like, ooh, this is like a bad idea, plus we're friends, plus you dated my friend, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. But, you know, I think the fact that we were pretty close and there had always been this sort of mutual attraction and then acting on that sort of made it really hot. There wasn't any tremendous awkwardness at all afterwards. We're still good friends, and it's kind of like this special thing that we shared that, you know, basically very few people know about. And it just feels a little bit more, has a little more melodrama or a little bit more like romance to it. That's just hotter to me. This model, this way of doing my relationship works really well for me. I don't know if it would work well for me with anyone else. It works very well for me in the relationship that I am in. It's not that I don't get jealous or that I'm not able to be jealous, that I'm not a jealous person. I think that I absolutely could be jealous. I think when I get jealous, it's less about the idea of the person I'm with having sex with someone else. That in and of itself, by itself, doesn't really bother me. It's more about if this person isn't giving me what I need and isn't there and present and attentive to me, isn't paying attention to me emotionally, and then they're kind of off somewhere else, I think then I would get jealous. But in the relationship I'm in, like, I've never experienced that. The way that we do our relationship wouldn't work for everyone and wouldn't work in every relationship. I think that what's most important is for people to be really clear with themselves and their partners about what their comfort zones are so that you can come to the kind of mutually agreed upon, you know, way of doing things that will make both people feel safe, make both people feel supported, make both people feel turned on and like they can get turned on and like they're safe exploring, you know, all of their desires and all that. I think that way that a lot of people do their relationships, where they're so threatened even to hear any mention of the fact that someone might be attracted to someone besides them, I do think sometimes from the outside, for me, it does feel like it's kind of like a little bit toxic. So that then when someone does cheat, it is this huge traumatic thing for everyone involved. The only other thing that I wanted to say about this topic is that I think that like the culture and the society, as well as our like political systems and what kinds of relationships they will recognize or not recognize, does have a major effect on our relationships. So the fact that it isn't considered really acceptable socially to be in an open relationship can have a negative impact on people who are in those types of relationships. Ideally, instead of there being like this one ideal that everyone has to reach, all of these other kind of options are acceptable and open to people. I respect people's right to keep their private life private or whatever and not share what they don't want to share with other people. But when I think that there are negative consequences of sharing, then that isn't really a choice. And so those negative consequences for people who share those things about their lives need to be gone. That is all I have to say about this topic. I am really excited to be considered as a potential weekly contributor and cast member at Queens of the Week, so I hope it works out. If not, I will still be a big fan and I will be around. So much love to you all. Mwah.